Previously on Aoi Shiro. The monk folded his fingers as he counted.
例外中の例外なんじゃが、働き盛りの若者が総白髪のやつれ果てた姿で戻ってきたそうな。その者も数日後にふらりと姿を消し、そのまま帰ってこなかったそうなんじゃがの。うわ
ー、なんだか知りませんが怖い。
Poor Momoko. White hair, white skin, one eye shut. Though I had only been given that little bit of info, the pieces fit together in my mind to make a distinct image.
椿のせい。昨日も報告しましたけど、女子高生の皆様方はなんとかならないものですかね。それで他のところは動きなしですか。なんかうちだけで対処するのは無理っぽいですから、鬼切りの頭なりなんなりに話して他の塔にも手を貸してもらったらどうですか。翔子さん、お帰りなさい。
And she lives!
自分のこの目で見たものを私は否定したくない。
With mine own eyes.
それじゃあまあ。
She aimed for my throat and gently rolled her pole around. You threatening me? I have a wooden stick I can use. I'll give you some nasty splinters.
傷はそれほど深くないみたいね。少なくとも骨とか筋には影響ないと思うわ。
And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken and welcome back to my Let's Play of Aoi Shiro. So, we're now all alone with Migiwa. We got her to reveal which organization she belongs to. Now the question is, where do we go from here?
いやー、ほんとしみると思わない？傷にもね。
Trying to keep quiet so we wouldn't wake anyone, Migiwa and I head directly to the onsen after returning from the ocean. Normally the busy monk lived here by himself. While I didn't have an automatic bell ringer, the onsen were automatic and 24-hour. Though it was comparatively poor temple, since the onsen were open all day, money was spent on certain areas. But as someone who's receiving the benefit of that, I don't have any complaints.
交代要員なしの面倒な見張り仕事だけど、この温泉のおかげで生き返るわ。
Maybe Migiwa has already decided she was going to take a long soak because she sunk all the way down, unlike me who sunk up to my waist. After she pulled the tab on her drink, she said,
和尚や葵先生じゃないけど、炭酸効いた冷たいやつをキューッと引っ掛けたくなるわね。こら、未成年。誰もアルコールとは言ってないじゃない。第一ここは君主が入るのを禁じられた山門よ。
I don't know. I think the head monk is pretty lenient about a lot of foods here. Her explanation didn't really work since leeks, alcohol, and meat had already invaded this temple. Whether it was because the monk liked it or if it was the norm for Unasaka, the bath was hot and even penetrated to my bones.
ここのお湯、傷に効くのよ。
Gotta make sure that bone marrow gets the healing benefits too, yo. The bath. Oh.
傷って言えば、右は。
As I soaked in the bath, I looked at Migiwa's well-proportioned body and noticed a faint injury. Normally covered up by her clothes, there was a bluish-black discoloration on her side. So there is. Looks like a scar. It wasn't clear that it was made by a sharp edge. Still, the injury looked too wide to have come from being hit with the blunt side of the blade. It was probably the result of being hit with a weapon like a wooden sword, or Migiwa's pole. Though she lived in the south, she wasn't that tan. It hurt just to look at that clearly visible bruise.
それは?
Okay, I guess it was a bruise.
これは証。敗北の証。前に剣気とやり合った時、私を潰した一撃の後、
So it acted as proof that the Kenki, who had the exact same swordsmanship as Natsuni-san, existed.
何が起こったのかわからなかったけど。
Since it was in that location, she was probably hit from the side instead of from the front.
相手が峰を返したのか、着用していた片びらのおかげか、それとも別の手段を使われたのか、私の目では見極められなかったんだけど。
Migiwa might have dodged, but if it resembled Natsuni-san in my techniques, perhaps it was a hit aimed for the body that missed.
とにかくこの一撃に私は負けて、意識はそのまま闇の中。目覚めた時には奴はおらず。あなたの言う剣は盗まれてしまった。
To defeat someone of Migiwa's caliber, Migiwa's group, the Suten, should have had several people of high-level skills. So the person who stole the sword must have been strong to have accomplished that. It wasn't unthinkable if someone who was already strong as a human became an Oni and gained even more power.
剣って何？あなたって何者？
She would go that far to protect it. Someone else would go that far to steal it.
鬼切部四天王のキヤン右輪だって言ったじゃない。だから四天王の歴史は約800年。もう少し正確には800と20年ほど前に遡るわ。もっともその頃のうちはまだ鬼切部じゃなかったんだけれどね。
They weren't even part of Japan at that time.
うちの和歌のご先祖様がご先祖様の親戚が持ってきたとあるものを世に出さないために作られたのがうちらの組織四天王。
A relative of the current boss's ancestor. So, a sibling or cousin to what's-his-face pointy ears, maybe?
もっともそれだけだと平次は暇すぎるし、何かを封印しているのがもろバレだし、それはまずいだろう。ってことで構成人員の適性からして鬼切部っぽい組織になっちゃったわけね。
And so they merged with the main Onikiribe.
とあるもの？とてつもない力を秘めた神器、神代の呪物かな。そんなものが四天王にあったってことは、津々浦々の各党を束ねる鬼切の頭も知らない身内だけの秘密なんだけどさ。どこから情報が漏れたのかは知らないけど、剣気が剣を奪っていった。
Undoubtedly from the owner. That which was hidden was found and stolen.
剣気には黒幕がいる。
It was hard to think that the Kenkei would go off and try to steal something it shouldn't know existed. Then there should be a mastermind that knew of the existence of the sword and let the Kenkei knew. Migiwa has suspected that Sekiganki, an Omiyuji that the Suten were told to be wary of, was pulling the strings.
浦島に猜疑を伝えた陰陽師がいるじゃない。
The one-eyed, white-haired Omiyoji.
私はそいつが赤眼鬼じゃないかって睨んでるわけよ。
There were a lot of things for me to ponder. Oni, Onikiri, and also the Sekiganki. After getting out of the bath, my head was fuzzy and I couldn't think clearly, so I went outside again. And though I just had a frightening experience, I once again went to the beach. Perhaps I was drawn by the sound of the waves. Perhaps I was entranced by the force of the ebbing tides. Or perhaps I just wanted to reason to myself about the existence of Oni, and it wasn't anything profound besides that. Oni shouldn't appear. Maybe I was just stubbornly trying to refuse the truth. Living in denial is not healthy, Shoko. Just saying. Sooner or later, we gotta face the truth. And once we do, it will set us free. Well, as long as I didn't go to the rocks over there, I should be fine. Probably. You probably just jinxed yourself. There's a clear field of view from here, so before I was attacked, I should be able to escape. Well, look who it is. It wasn't a Moryu, but not me.
ちょっとナミ、何をうろうろしてるのよ。
She padded up to me and grabbed me in a hug. I've been glumped!
ナミ、もしかして私を探してたの？
If Nami were with me, then I should be more cautious about where I was. Bringing Nami, I went back to Shoshinji. After a good night's sleep, I should be able to think more clearly. Sweet of you to come get me, though, all things considered. I woke up at the same time as usual. It wasn't that my nerves were too stimulated that I couldn't sleep, though I did feel that my sleep was lighter than usual. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the morning air, and tried to expel the worries lurking in my mind. I temporarily eased the thoughts in my head, but it didn't seem that it would last, unlike sediment that had stuck fast to a surface. I wonder if Nami dreams of sheep.
まったく悩みのない顔しちゃって。
Sleeping in the futon next to mine, Nami's expression and breathing while sleeping was as it normally was. Also, I was thankful that those Moryu monsters didn't show up when Nami was wandering around by herself. The other team members didn't seem the type to walk around late at night either. That's right. Speaking of staying in a temple, it seems a long-haired ghost girl had appeared. It was a little different than being beset by problems within and without, but as the captain, what should be my response? Ghostbusters? It seemed quite some time had passed unawares, as I looked at Nami's sleeping face.
おはようございます。
Hello, Aoi Shiro.
おはよう。翔子先輩、おはようございます。
Oh, hello, I can
Shoko-senpai.
skip that.
その怪我は？
I hit a really big branch. With a smile on her face, Yasumi's sharp eyes noticed yesterday's injury.
ああ、ゆうべに岩場でちょっと引っ掛けて。
No, that's not what I said, Shoko. I guess I couldn't just come out and say a monster attacked me. Well, just in case, it didn't cost me anything to mention it, and perhaps it was better to give a warning. But if it were a prank, it would only increase the amount of unease here. I quickly finished changing, and used the long cuffs of my pants to hide my leg.
大した傷じゃないのよ。
It was still okay not to talk about it. You really should, though. As you yourself just said, it wouldn't really hurt. It really wouldn't hurt to even give some much as a warning. There was still time before it got dark. Even if it gets dark, if no one goes outside, there shouldn't be any big problems. The monks lived here for a long time, and if there were a problem, an Oikiri like Migiwa wouldn't leave it alone. Well, I think that's likely because the monks never really had to deal with problems like these until just recently, if he's been dealing with them in any fashion at all.
ダメです。ちゃんと手当てしますから見せてください。
Okay. Well, I guess that was the best thing to do. Though perhaps she was making too big of a fuss over it. Well, I guess I could check to see if I unlock... Wait, let me check the flowchart.
進行上、カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
I guess I could just check the go back option and see what variant of the leave ending I get before I move on.
そうですね。
Huh. Nothing new. Moving on. There were still no indications that a storm was coming. Perhaps the wind was stronger than yesterday, but because of that, the heat didn't get trapped.
進行上カーソルを合わせると正代
Okay, it didn't pop up on there. Just wanted to check that real fast. Under the endless sky that seemed to draw you in, the lights dry, delightful crackling sounds flowed and changed, endlessly ringing. After we had finished going through our stretching exercises carefully, we took our wooden swords and began to practice. Since we didn't bring our protectors, when practicing frontal attacks, the receiver would hold the bamboo sword above their head. It might not be on the level of practice sparring, but it was still good since you could get the feel of swinging the sword.
時間です。交代してください。今日も混ぜてもらおうかしら。いいけど、どういう風の吹き回し？
Does she need a reason to swing a stick? I never do. Yesterday I invited her and she might have accepted in order to keep good relations with us while we were at Shoshinji. However, today Migiwa herself said she wanted to participate. However, Migiwa, who annihilated the Moryu last night, was much more skilled than us, and we couldn't be a proper opponent for her. What exactly was she planning?
ちょこっと確かめたいことがあって。
And what would that be?
部員の誰かを鬼だと疑ってるわけ。さーて、まあいいけど。
Though since she said that my sword skills resembled that Oni, there shouldn't be any other team members that matched.
翔子先輩、時間です。
Yasumi's whistle blew. It was time for a 10-minute break. We didn't have our protectors at the camp, but we still had to be careful to replace fluids to prevent heat stroke. It was fine to leave that all to Yasumi, so it was a good time for me, someone with bad luck, to be captain. I didn't have as many as Akiko-san, but in this world, I think the bonds and relationships are more important than luck. Sounds like something out of a shonen anime. And speaking of the relationships formed on this trip.
ところでさ、おさ、何よ。私と言ってし合ってみない？
Well, since I am your top suspect among this group at the moment, I guess it does make sense for you to come to me. Why not? The eloquent Migiwa said I wasn't a suspect anymore, but she might just be pretending that was the case. However, I wasn't the Kenki. Different than me, she had been in a real fight. In addition, the opponent had not been human, but an Oni. I wanted to feel her strength myself. I wondered how much of a difference there was between me and Migiwa. We were the same age, but she had experienced a true battle. Of course, there were many ordinary high school girls who were stronger than me too.
お互いにね。
I don't know about Migiwa, but I plan to stop before contact, since we weren't wearing protectors, though it's still dangerous. Perhaps I also wanted to have a vicious match, since I should be the strongest on the team, and we might be ending camp early. Even though I acknowledged it was dangerous, I still accepted Migiwa's offer of a match. We cleared out an approximate 10 by 10 meter square space and exchanged bows.
はじめ。
With a stopwatch in one hand, Yasumi announced the beginning of the match. Perhaps Migiwa planned to observe first, since she held her weapon in a forward stance, but didn't attack. I didn't see any openings in that stance, so I couldn't attack either. The reason I didn't rush forward like I always did was probably because of the lack of a protector. Half of me didn't want to get hurt, and half of me didn't want to injure the other person. Shuffling along the ground, I adjusted the distance between us. Still, we couldn't continue to just glare at each other forever, so I took the initiative and launched an attack. Poke her in the eye! Ha! Face of my straight-on attack, Migiwa slipped around in a circular direction and dodged. As I passed by Migiwa, she whispered in my ear so that only I could hear.
はあ、その動きには覚えがある。
Migiwa stated that there was no mistaking my swordsmanship was like that of the Kenkei. I immediately turned and pointed the tip of my sword at Migiwa, preparing myself for the next attack. Migiwa didn't take that chance to strike, but continued holding her sword in a ready stance. Only her gaze pierced through me.
やっぱりオサ、あんたの動きは知ってるわ。こうまで楽にかわせるのは体のスペックのせいかしら。
Was she saying that due to my physical abilities, she was able to dodge a similar move to the one she knew?
あなたはやっぱり私のこと。
Did she have suspicions that I was an Oni? Well, at the very least, she probably is thinking that you have at least some connection to that Oni, if only through combat style. Bamboo sword clashed with bamboo sword as Migiwa and I fought for position.
いや、私もそこまでおバカじゃないわよ。オサにはアリバイあるだろうし、剣気が体から抜け出た生き量の類じゃないってことは、私ら本職には分かってる。じゃあ、簡単な話じゃない。鬼と同じ立ち筋のオサが鬼じゃないなら、オサと同じ立ち筋の人が鬼なのよ。え？私と同じ？
My stance, my steps, my swing. In my mind and my heart was burned a perfect model to follow. In order to come close to those ideal movements, I trained my body and polished my skills. Then, the person who had the same swordsmanship as me was...
さーて、心当たりはあるのかな？
More than enough, honestly.
夏姉さん。Bingo!
I probably lost my concentration for only a moment. But like the phrase, instant kill, that was enough to determine the victor. Migiwa's body leaned back. My bamboo sword reflexively came up in a ready stance as the tip of Migiwa's sword wrapped around mine.
しまった！巻き技！
If the opponent concentrates, then a makiwaza that disarms by wrapping your sword around your opponent shouldn't work. However, since I had been thinking about something else, I couldn't react to that move. The bamboo sword that left my hand flew up high in the air. You bring dishonor to your team.
これは蛇の目。
Migiwa didn't point her bamboo sword at my throat after disarming me, but continued to swirl her sword around. Like what happens when placing a finger on a resting dragonfly, the tip of her sword made small circles.
蛇はね、相手を睨みつけて動きを封じるのよ。
I couldn't move. It's not that I was misled by those circles. It was that an unarmed me had lost my only weapon for winning and couldn't move. Faced with Migiwa's next attack, I...
そこまで!
Monk, it's not over until the killing blow lands. I still have my fists. The shot which rang out made both Migiwa and I stop. I let out a breath full of hot carbon dioxide, which had filled my chest. When did Aoi Sensei and the monk arrive?
もうあなたたち防具もつけずに何やってるんですか？
We're doing things the old-fashioned way, of course.
若い娘さんらが防具もつけずに打ち合うのにはわしも賛同などせんが最近のものにしては骨があるの。
If anything had happened, the advisor would be questioned about it. Of course, our teacher was mad.
申し訳ありません。いやー、寸止めルールだったんですよ。長はうまいから大丈夫かなってつい。
True, that's what I was planning on doing, but I don't remember actually making an agreement to that.
じゃあ、私はここら辺で。
I will have a rematch, and I will win.
あ、ミギーさんが逃げた。
Or so help me, I will take out my frustrations on Momoko. As a person who has survived in a world of fighting, she really was quick to escape.
キアンさんも一緒にお説教です。戻ってきなさい。お昼はおかゆです。
And what, pray tell, do we have here? So for lunch we were having chayu, rice gruel made with tea. To accommodate Momoko, who went on and on about meat, it resembled Chinese-style gruel, with toppings like ground chicken. There was also edamame with sleet vinegar, and for dessert, a tomato sliced in half, good for lowering body temperature. Following from yesterday's somen, today's lunch was also suited for the harsh heat of the south, and everyone was pleased. Quietly, the food disappeared from the table.
というわけで、海に行きましょう。
Skipping over the various details involved, Momoko said to go to the ocean.
今日は海に行って遊びましょう。
She was going to say the entire kendo team should go. But then Momoko realized that Migiwa was also here.
ミギーさんも午後暇ならばどうですか？ああ、いや、私はいいや。水着持ってないし。
We can always shop for one. Or, there's also option B, petty theft. It looked like her voice wavered a bit, which was unlike her, but since Migiwa didn't come to this place to have fun, for me also, though I considered this was mostly recreation, at the very end, coming south was still a training camp for kendo.
私も水着は持ってないから。ももちゃん持ってきてたの？そっち持ってきてないの？
It seems the competent manager in charge of smooth operations for the camp also didn't consider the details of just playing around. So 2 people from the kendo club were already quickly excluded.
海で合宿なんだから言うまでもない基本装備だと思うのですがね。そんなこと言われても。
It'd be trouble to consider that basic preparation, but the truth was, only Yasumi and I didn't bring swimsuits. Don't forget Migiwa, if she's telling the truth. And of course, Nambi didn't have one either. Afterwards, I confiscated Kumoichi, which Momoko had wanted to use to split watermelons, and the discussion was left like that.
ちょっと右は。
I caught a hold of Migiwa before she went outside. Because of Migiwa's duty, her final stop should be the Oni stepping stones, but she might not go there directly like yesterday. It was a lucky thing I was able to catch her while she was still in Shoshinji.
右は。あなたに聞きたいことがあるんだけど。お昼の時にみんなの前で聞けないような話なのかな？
I nodded. Like how Migiwa had hidden everything from me, if I couldn't help it, I'd rather not let anyone else know about this. I didn't want anyone else to hear and get involved in this business of Onikiri, Kenkei, and the Moryu from yesterday. I had held back and endured during lunchtime. In truth, I had wanted to ask even before that, but Migiwa ran off and hid until lunch after the monk and Aoi sensei shouted. And also, regarding Migiwa, last night she fought the Moryu and saw how pitiful I was. Though she said I wasn't a Kenkei, she still requested a match. Seeing my reactions during the match, it seems she discovered something, but she should still have questions for me. About the Oni that had the same swordsmanship as me. About the person who had the same swordsmanship as me.
いいけどさ、そういう感じの話なら外行って話した方がいいかもね。壁に耳あり、障子に目あり。別段相手が聞きたくなくても、昔ながらの日本家屋に防音なんて概念ないし。確かにね。
Unlike glass windows and thick wooden doors, the thin paper doors would only obstruct visibility.
とはいえ境内あたりでも誰がいるとも限らないし、サラの森まで足伸ばそうか。
I wonder if Kohaku is wandering around there right now. Instead of going to the Oni stepping stones, we head towards the South Forest. It seems Migiwa wanted to go somewhere else besides the Oni stepping stones, which she had to keep watch over during the low tide. Migiwa and I entered the South Forest. I wondered how long we had walked. I wondered if we were almost there. In the South Forest, among the bright white flowers and under the midday sun, Migiwa and I faced each other.
さて。
Oh, we're having a rematch? Already? Today, Migiwa didn't attempt to hide the same pole she had held last night. And as if I had some premonition, I got my own stick. I had brought kumoichi, which I had confiscated from Momoko. A cold wind blew, the saltiness having been filtered away by the green leaves. The wind which carried the reflection of green light rustled in the space between the two of us. I feel like if I give her the first move, it might giving her the first move might give me a chance to analyze her movements and maybe create an opening for myself. But then again, I got some questions regarding your thoughts relating to Natsuni-san. Migiwa, who had lost to the Kenkei felt its swordsmanship firsthand. And though the difference in level between the skills of the Kenkei me was great, the foundation was still the same. Which is why Migiwa had thought there was a possibility the Kenkei had changed bodies and possessed me. However, there was only one person I knew whose skills were tens, no, hundreds of times above me. She was already no longer in this world, but if she had come back to life as an Oni... Do you mind, world? As I was going to voice my opinion, the ring of his cell phone interrupted me and the words melted in my mouth. My bad luck and timing really did pile up like folded origami. I wondered if Migiwa liked red, since she had a red pole and red clothes. Taking out a red cell phone, she checked the LCD display. Oh, I thought that was my phone.
ああ、来た来た。情報が来た。
Seemed to be a mail instead of a phone call, and Migiwa rapidly read it.
成城女学院高等学校の2年生、幼い翔子とは姉妹にも等しい間柄であり、それなりの実力と思われる剣道経験者。
It was information about me, who was once suspected of being the Kenkei. No, wait.
そして名前に夏の一文字。
It was information about my cousin.
これだけ情報出揃えば写真を探し出せるわけで、剣気の顔を見てる私は写真を見れば首実験ができる。
Migiwa stopped fiddling with her phone. One edge of her mouth lifted up in a smirk.
ビンゴ。
Her eyes didn't smile as she continued to stare at the LCD display.
なるほど、すでに奇跡の人物ね。8年前、この地で嵐に飲まれて行方不明に。その1年後に失踪宣言が受理され死亡。おさ、これが私が追っている剣気よ。
The picture reflected in the display of the red cell phone was.
夏姉さん。
Sure enough, that's definitely her. I almost remembered that picture. It was taken after she won the championship and was featured in a magazine. I anticipated it was her, and had prepared myself, but my heart still made a big jump.
女子剣道選手権優勝者、成海かや。剣気かやってところかな。夏姉さん、生きてたんだ。鬼は死人よ。生きちゃいないわ。だって右は見たんでしょ？ええ、見ましたとも。写真そっくりそのままの鬼に一撃食らって悶絶したわ。
As if she were infuriated from the bottom of her heart, she said that while rubbing her side. That was proof that it hadn't been a dream or illusion.
だけどね、オサ。死んだことになっている人間が8年前と同じ姿でこの世をうろつき、しかも鬼切り部が封印していたものを強奪。
8 years. During that time, I had gone from grade school to middle school to high school, and was now captain of the kendo team. Even if the person was already an adult, it wasn't natural to not have changed at all during that long period. I could understand if someone had been in a huge accident and her appearance changed so much she was mistaken for another. But for her to have the same healthy appearance as 8 years ago, and to not even try to make contact with me at all.
それが鬼以外の何者だっていうわけ？
She can't be anything else but an Oni. And that was what Migiwa declared, whose job was part of the Onikiribi to slay Oni. Natsuni-san, who Migiwa called Kenkikaya, wasn't a blameless Oni, but had also stolen the sword from the Suten of Ryukyu, which is when Migiwa had been injured. Migiwa, the enemy of my relative, and about 5 centimeters taller, looked down at me with a hard look in her eyes. Her stony gaze implied that I shouldn't stick my neck into the business of the Kenke anymore, as she also said. But we're gonna get involved anyway, because reasons.
身内だからこそ引っ込んでいられないのよ。
Natsuni-san was still alive. No, she might already be dead, but she existed in this world. After hearing that, neither my innate personality nor my learned behavior would allow me to back down. Because it was Natsuni-san, I wanted to believe there was some reason for her behavior, and ask her about it. If Natsuni-san had become the Kenke and was no longer Natsuni-san anymore, then I...
じゃあ弱いやつも邪魔。足引っ張られたくないし。
Migiwa closed her cell phone and thrust the tip of her pole at my throat.
なんならこの場でもう一度さっきの続きをしてあげてもいいんだけど。
Pulling the pole at me, Migiwa was saying that she'd use force if necessary to make me back off.
今日の試合のあの動きは夏姉さんの動きじゃない。
Holding Kumaoichi, I returned the cold, hard, piercing glare. An attack from Natsuni-san, nicknamed the Rook, wouldn't have been like that.
わかってるわよ。昨日の怪我が原因でしょ？
Yes, the injury was the key.
夏姉さんはまだ鬼じゃない。
You don't know that. The proof was because Migiwa had only been injured.
なんでそういうこと言うわけ？夏姉さんが持ってるの真剣だったんでしょ？だったら右はなんであなたが生きてるわけ？え？
I could see a small tremor run through the pole that she held.
夏姉さんが峰を返したりしたからじゃないの？
Migiwa herself had said it was a possibility. I don't know what she wore, but would it have stopped a blow from Natsune-san?
どうだかね。
Migiwa's reply was vague and didn't completely reject my suggestion.
どういう風にやられたのかわからなかった。私は信じる。夏姉さんは。
Yes, though in the end it was still yet. Migi and I glared at each other as we were at a distance, where Kumoichi and her pole might or might not clash. Time slowly moved forward as we continued to glare. Even if I got beaten up, my heart wouldn't waver. Migiwa's piercing words wouldn't cause me to vanish. The wind rustled, and the flowers and leaves of the sao trees swayed. Mixed in with that noise was the crunching sound of the underbrush continually being stepped on. And what appeared was...
オサ先輩、何やってるんですか?
You're not Kohaku. You're not Kohaku at all. Hello anyway, though. It turned out to be Momoko, carrying a large bag on her back. Since Momoko came, we didn't conclude our face-off. Momoko said it was perfect timing and dragged me back to the temple. Perfect timing for what? After being dragged back to Shoshinji by Momoko, I was made to put on the swimsuit, that she had ordered Yasumi to purchase.
何この水着?
Apparently, one that Momoko really likes. I didn't know about the particulars, but the size was perfect, and there would be no problem with putting it on, but...
ちょっと、私が着るようなのとは違うんじゃない? またまた、オサ先輩スタイルいいんですから、これぐらいにしないと。ほとんどプライベートビーチ状態ですから、周りの目は気にしなくて OK です。
Even if I didn't have to worry about strangers, I'd have to worry about the people here. Though I should be used to seeing bare skin since we all changed together and took showers at the same time after practice. Perhaps the difference between being in a closed-off room and being under the open sky exacerbated my embarrassment. Probably. Even in the room we were sleeping in, since it was rather large, I just couldn't relax when I was exposing this much skin. That meant that now, everyone in the team had a swimsuit, and we'd all go off to the beach tomorrow. It'd be nice if if it rained. I don't know if my wish was heard or not, but a small, quick evening shower sent raindrops pattering on the rooftops. I guess we're skipping the beach episode for this route. No, I didn't mean rain now, but tomorrow. As usual, we had leisure time after the meal.
さて、時間あるうちにお風呂入っちゃいましょう。ナミちゃん、時間かかりますしね。
Since Nami was attached to both Yasumi and me, the three of us entered the bath together. I'm just picturing her and Nami having an arm around both your necks and just holding on to you both for dear life as you entered the spring. Since Momoko was hosting the test of courage today, quite some people were holding off on a bath until after that. While it was more efficient to take a bath afterwards, if many people thought that way, it'd get crowded. Well, if I got all sweaty, I didn't mind taking a bath a second time.
私、あんまり髪の毛長くしたことないから、その辺は頼んだわよ。
That was unknown territory for me, who had never had hair longer than my shoulders, and couldn't compare to Yasumi or Nami. Though I think Nami's hair was also unknown territory for Yasumi.
極楽極楽
Don't expect it to last. After rinsing my body in the washing area, I sank into the tub of hot water. The water was drawn from a spring nearby. Besides that, it was a normal bath, but quite excessive. The cypress wasn't high quality, but maybe the water changed into something else, because the smell of the wood was relaxing. While Yasumi and Nami were washing up, I monopolized a wide tub and could stretch my limbs as much as I wanted.
じゃあお湯で流すから目をつぶって。
The tilted bucket dumped water on top of Nami's head, which flowed downwards. I preferred the heavy feel of a bath using a bucket more than a shower. When I was small, I felt regretful that I couldn't lift a bucket with one hand. But the times when I was with Natsu-ni-san, I heard the sound of water flowing. As Nami shook her head, droplets flew from the hair that was plastered to her body.
ナミちゃんのシャンプー終わりました。
I wonder how many ounces of shampoo it required. Yasumi let out a sigh after finishing that task.
お疲れ様。体は私が洗うから湯船の中で休んでて。はーい。
She exchanged places with me in the bath and began to massage her tired arms.
温泉っていいですよね。そうね。
Replying to Yasumi, whose voice indicated she was feeling well, I started to scrub Nami's pearly white skin.
はい、腕伸ばして。
She didn't fidget like other children and quietly let the bubbles be washed off her. After that, she didn't look at my chest but lower down.
ナミちゃん、何やってるの？
Let me guess. My leg? Yep. She reached out her small white hand and began to pat my leg, which she had just been looking at. The feel of her slightly cool hand sliding along my skin was a bit ticklish. Her hand caught at a certain area and she stopped moving it.
私の傷に興味があるみたいね。
Underneath Nami's palm was the injury I received yesterday.
先輩、止めなくていいんですか？別に痛くされてるわけじゃないし。
Actually, it felt similar to being immersed in the onsen, as something was gradually entering me.
何？
Nami took her hand from my leg as if saying, "Look there." I wondered what was going on as I bent forward to look.
傷が。
I couldn't find it. So you can heal wounds without licking people? Okay. So maybe you just like the taste of blood. Is that it?
あれ？
She gave a little shout as she looked my way to check the little miracle that had occurred. The water's surface swayed as Yasumi moved, holding onto the edge of the onsen. She looked to be in pain.
なんだか急に目の前が真っ白。
Nami, you didn't take anything from Yasumi too, did you?
休み？
Oh dear, somebody get the fishing net.
ちょっと休み！しっかりして！
Whether it was due to the long soak or not, Yasumi sank down. Crying all the while, Momoko said it was okay to put Yasumi in the futon, as she was, and decided to delay the test of courage. We're not even doing the test of courage. It seems Momoko had no intention of conducting a test of courage without Yasumi, who was so important to her. Tomorrow, all recovered, Following Momoko's declaration, everyone went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep and went out to the courtyard.
1、2、3、4、5。
I continued to swing kumoichi as I worked up a sweat. It was heavier than a bamboo sword, so maybe that was why I could put such vigor in my swings. In just one day, I had lost twice to Migiwa. Well, no, you were kind of interrupted both times. At first glance, since she lived in a different world than me, I wasn't vexed that I couldn't win against her. Of course, that wasn't the case. I was extremely frustrated.
蛇の目って言ったっけ、あの技。
I didn't know whether it received its name from rotating the tip of the sword, or whether it was because of the Makiwaza.
右輪が普段使ってるのは刀じゃなくてあの棍か。
The Najayo no Me was really meant to be used not by a bamboo sword unfamiliar to Migiwa, but that pole she gripped.
市内や木刀よりも長いわよね。
I swung Kumoichi as I reminisced about the two matches I had today. I wanted to win against Migiwa. If, like Migiwa said, Natsune-san had truly become an Oni down to the core, then I had to chase and stop her. Also, if the Sekiganki were using Natsune-san like Migiwa said, I wanted to defeat it and avenge Natsune-san. Sekiganki. I don't think you're going to really have much of a chance against the guy unless you learn a few magic tricks of your own. Migiwa said that the one-eyed, white-haired Omiyoji who had brought Kurosama's faith to Hiroshima was suspicious. The person I had met in the South Forest on the first night here. I wondered if it was this Sekiganki that was using Natsune-san, and it made me recall feelings that weren't my own. Perhaps the reason I had such thoughts rooted deep within me was due to some magic cast on me. Migiwa, Natsune-san, Sekiganki. Right now, every one of them was a target that I couldn't even think about reaching. Though I knew that, even if I spent all night swinging a wooden sword, nothing would change. Even then, I had to continue swinging. I still wanted to become stronger. The salty air from the sea felt refreshing against my warmed-up body.
そろそろ干潮が近いわね。
I wonder if Migiwa was still standing on guard over there. She was surely over there doing just that. Sure enough. As expected, Migiwa was at the stepping stones, and as expected, she had her fishing line out in the ocean.
右は夏姉さんはまだ怪我までしといて懲りないわね。懲りないわね。
It's not like I didn't understand her feeling of wanting to tell me, a newbie, to stay out of the way cause I'd get hurt. As if I'd let a painful experience like that stop me. Before Natsune-san had become an Oni, she had been a precious relative, until I was shown definitive proof of it. And if she had become an Oni, then I... Migiwa didn't hide a sigh, indicating this is why relatives were troublesome. Neither of us spoke much as we waited for our target. We continued waiting for the time when that person would come. And today also. Do you mind that it's rude screeching in people's ears?
ほら、言わんこっちゃない。
It was splashed like a koi jumping up for food, strewn on top of a pond. The Moryu, which were both Shikigami and Kappa, appeared. Following Migiwa, who threw her pole aside, I also stood up.
元より覚悟の上でのことよ。
In my hand, I held Kumoichi, which was imbued with the power from the Tokusaki no Tsubaki. That was proof of my determination. Unlike yesterday when I saw those things for the first time, I had already anticipated something like this. I'm fine. I'm still calm.
1匹、2匹、3匹、4匹。
Maintain my posture, not laying down my guard. I counted the number of Moryu. The palm that held Kumoichi was soaked in sweat. In truth, I was frightened.
昨日受けた傷の借り、と1どころか数倍返しどころで返済できそうね。おやおや、化け物相手に随分殊勝な心がけで、長って本当に一般人？
I'm too stubborn and stupid to be normal.
そのつもりだけどね。でもこれだけの数を前にして、あなたが全然ひるんでないのに、私一人がおじけづいてたら。
The frustration from that time was still rooted in my chest.
私とあなたの実力差が数回りとか数段どころか何倍単位で違うみたいで、とにかく尺に触るじゃない。
I wonder why. Though she was an opponent who had surpassed normal human limits, losing to her compared to other senpai or students was. It was vexing enough for me to not be able to sleep. It made me go out at night to swing a wooden sword. Really, why did I feel that way? Though she were in a situation like this, Migiwa's face, voice, and attitude were still relaxed.
OK、このちっちゃいのは雑魚よ、雑魚。引っかかれたり噛みつかれたりすると危ないけど、向こうも打たれ強くはないから、木刀を持った一般人でも1対1ならなんとかなるから。
So they were just small fry. Or paradoxically speaking, the only ones I could handle were small fry.
仕方ない。長にも少し譲ってあげるわ。
Even though she said that, I felt the frustration within me lighten a bit. However, I pretended I wasn't affected, and did my utmost not to let anything show on my face, as I replied in a low voice.
それはどうも。
I swung Kumoichi in response. When I connected, it felt heavy and was different from the feeling of hitting armor with a bamboo sword. Using the reaction against hitting the elastic skin and flesh, I held Kumoichi aloft. I slammed down once again. Since the Moryu was low to the ground, it would be easy to miss, but I used all my might to swing down on its head. The second blow felt different than the first one. At first, the contradictory feeling of softness and hardness against the end of the sword was the same, but I passed through it. The sensation as the Moryu disappeared was like hitting a solidified mound of sand, though finer and softer than that. The Moryu crumbled into something, resembling black dust, and vanished like scattered ash. One down. My first attack was hesitant because I felt like I was hitting some animal, but if they were just going to vanish...
大丈夫。やれる。
I utilized the abundant amount of energy in my stiff shoulders.
自分の敵は自分で打たなきゃダメよね。
Well then, I suspect Kaya should be showing up any minute now.
今ので全部。どうやら打ち止めになったらしいわね。どう？初めての鬼退治の感想は？あんまりいいものじゃないわね。ま、最初はそんなもんか。ところでお互い何匹撃墜したかスコア比べと言ってみる？
Why bother? We both know that you beat her. She said that in a sing-song voice and seemed to be in good spirits, though I could already tell who the winner would be.
やめとく。
Though Migiwa had brought up the point about that's what it's like in the beginning, there was no denying her dominance. In other words, it was a matter of sheer difference in ability. There were also strong opponents who were the same age as me, that I'd lost to, but Migiwa was outside of our league. The night sky looked very high up. The tension in my body was suddenly released, and I forgot why I came here in the first place, as I stared at the stars for a while.
あれは
Here she is. The figure was tall for a girl, taller even than Migiwa. The casual black shirt was worn in a careless manner. The shoulder-length hair was tied back, so as to not get in the way, but in a clumsy manner as the bangs hung over the long face. That was the figure of the Natsu-Nisen that I knew. I guess the sound of those footsteps really did belong to Natsu-Nisen. Natsu-Nisen, who Migiwa called an Oni, had heavy steps, and with a shadow that blocked the moonlight, she didn't look like a ghost. With an injured arm that was bleeding, and a grid face trying to fight off that pain, she didn't look like an Oni. So what injured you, is what I want to know. Was it Kohaku? Or an undead person? So that Natsu-Nisen really was alive.
あれ
But at that time, Natsu-Nisen... Didn't Natsu-Nisen get cut down and die? Well, yeah. Wasn't she dead? That's right. Red blood. Crimson blood. A mortal wound she shouldn't have survived. Even then, Natsu-Nisen fought for my sake until the very end. That memory which should have been swallowed up by a torrent of water and washed away.
おやおや、何があったか知らないけど、なんだか満身創痍じゃない？
At Migiwa's voice, the bubble burst.
日頃の行いがいいと、漁夫の利とかって転がり込んでくるものね。
I wonder who exactly had done that not to Natsu-Nisen, as her entire body was covered in countless sword cuts of varying sizes. But more than the wounds, there was one thing about her that was different from the Natsu-Nisen that I knew. What she's holding? She wasn't holding a familiar bamboo or wooden sword. It wasn't a Japanese blade either, like what had cut down Migiwa before.
手にしたあれは剣。
The shape, weight, and balance were different from a Japanese blade. That bloodthirsty, double-edged sword would be hard to wield.
剣気かや、鳴海かや。鬼切り部四天刀が鬼切り、キヤン右輪が奪われた剣を取り戻しに来たぞ。
Good luck! Migiwa blocked the way to the stepping stones. Natsu-Nisen cocked her eyebrows slightly, and with a harsh look, said,
そこをどいて通しなさい。それができない相談なのよね。私にだって意地がある。
The reason Migiwa waited here twice a day at noon and night was for this moment. The pride of the Onikiri would probably not allow her to step down when faced with an opponent she had suffered defeat to.
ところであんた、警察官だったわけよね。元だ。すでに死んだことになっている。ちょっとシャレにならないっていうか、冗談にしても立ち悪すぎよね。日本の官憲制度に物申したいって感じ。
Eloquent Kian Migiwa started cleverly speaking, excuse me. If she lost in terms of pure power, then she was willing to crack jokes to agitate the opponent.
で、被害届はまだだから、今なら示談で済ませてあげるけど。
そこを通してもらおうか。
But the wholeheartedly stubborn Natsume-san completely disregarded that suggestion. She held up the sword to the moonlight, and as if talking to herself, ground out these words.
私はすでに人ではない。人であった私は死んだのだ。
なるみかや。
違う。私はすでにそうではない。今しがたまで死者ではあっても鬼ではあってもその名で呼ばれる資格を持っていた。けれどたった今なった。
Just now you became one. Is it related to your wounds?
たった今切った。
Yeah, it has to be.
肉を切る手応えを私は知った。骨を断つ手応えを私は知った。
So who did you kill?
人を切るのは初めてだったけれど、私は先ほど確信した。私はそうだと確信できた。震えなかった。手も足も心も。なすべきことをなすためならば何の考えもなく人を切れると知った。黄泉より帰ったこの体のみならず魂までも鬼となり果てていたと知った。けれどそれでも構わない。人の身では神を切るには不足。私はあの子を救うため望んで鬼となったのだ。
元気かや。
そうだ。
Shiver. Because of her unexpectedly cold words, I couldn't even say anything. Though she was awkward, she had always been kind. That voice wasn't like Natsume-san, and I couldn't call out to her.
ステン島の木や右は押してまいる。前の雪辱はここで果たす。
Like a nimble mountain cat, Migiwa leaped from rock to rock as she headed towards Natsume-san. The vermilion pole swung around in a downward path. She wasn't in Natsume-san's range yet. Though Natsume-san had the nickname Rook and used a quick, one-handed strike, Migiwa wasn't in the range of a casual swing. However, after Natsume-san swung the sword once, the air in the vicinity became heavy. You might want to just run at this point. I think you're way over your head, especially since she has that sword. That weight wrapped around Migiwa's limbs and robbed them of their motion. Though Migiwa had been that nimble, her moves became jerky, and she crumbled apart like a broken gear. My lungs burned from the inside. The miasma that spread out felt as if it would corrode all the nerves and muscles in my body.
剣、ここまで力を。
Migiwa staggered, her knees bent, and she looked like she was going to fall down. Even before she was in the range of the sword, Migiwa looked like she had been hit by something and was going to collapse.
ダメだ、体がバランス。
And then Migiwa fell into the ocean. Shioko, you might want to go fetch her before she drowns.
右は。
まだ間に合うかもしれない。早く助けてあげなさい。
Natsume-san said that to me as she crossed over the rocks where Migiwa had just been. Do you recognize her? She probably didn't know it was me since she talked to me like a stranger and not a relative. Using the power of an Oni which surpassed that of a human, Natsume-san leapt over the stepping stones without looking back. Yeah, I need to save Migiwa. I'm sorry. Natsume-san can wait. I only hesitated for a second. More important to me than chasing after Natsune-san was...
右は今助ける
I chose to save Migiwa and jumped into the ocean at night. The reason my luck was normally bad might be because it was saved up for situations like this. Perhaps the energy of the sword had stolen her movement capability, because she was already listless by the time I reached her. One thing you're not supposed to do when attempting a water rescue is to suddenly jump in. If one of the human's 4 limbs is unable to move, it becomes really easy for that person to drown. One unfortunate thing was that Migiwa didn't make any strange movements, like clinging tightly to me. And there was one other fortunate thing. Considering the sharp rocks especially exposed by low tide, Migiwa and I weren't injured at all when falling or jumping in. That is lucky. But that didn't mean she was entirely uninjured.
息は
Had stopped. Breathing had stopped. Migiwa wasn't taking any breaths. CPR! Even if I called an ambulance, how long would it take to arrive? You gotta do CPR. Do you know how? It would definitely not make it in time. Then I had to do something. Migiwa had called Natsune-san, my relative. The Kenkei had been casting a search net for her and various other things. But still, I was the only one who had the most contact with Migiwa in the past couple days, and it was also of my own accord. It seems I would have to be the one to resuscitate her.
まさかこんなことする機会が実際にあるなんてね
It was an oft-used situation in stories and such, though.
うまくできるかわからないけど
I learned about it in class, but that was just book knowledge. This was the first time I'm putting it into practice. You didn't even have so much as a training dummy to use for this shit? This was CPR, but the experience of me touching someone else's lips with mine was. Excluding when I was a little kid, I haven't done that at all. I knelt down next to her, bent forward, and put my face near hers. This might be the first time I've seen Migiwa this close. Under the light of the cool blue moon, her soaked skin was covered in shadow, which heightened the contrast of her face. Because she was so expressive, it was easy to get the impression she was always a strong person, but it seemed that was subdued along with her consciousness, and I once again realized the beauty of her chiseled features. You could say she's a southern belle. Her bedraggled hair, closed eyelids that didn't even flutter, and slightly opened lips made me nervous. Okay, this is CPR. CPR. I shook my head, causing the sea wire to fly from my hair in place of my idle thoughts. Anyways, the first step was to lift up Migiwa's jaw and free up her airway. Okay, good. That's the right first step. This wasn't a time for hesitation. When it comes to CPR, even starting a few minutes later will reduce the success rate. I filled my lungs with the salty, nightly air and leaned over Migiwa from the side, covering her body with my own. I added my lips to the open lips of Migiwa. Our soft lips touched, and I blocked any openings, confirming that everything was airtight. I transferred the warm air from inside my chest to Migiwa. From my lungs to my trachea. From my trachea to the inside of my mouth. From my mouth to Migiwa's. After I confirmed that Migiwa's lungs filled, I removed my mouth from hers. As I repeated that over and over. Okay, good, she's breathing.
Migiwa!
Migiwa finally began to start breathing on her own. Her closed eyelids opened, and her wet eyes reflected the light of the moon.
Migiwa! しっかりしなさい!
You sure it's a bad idea for relatives to get involved in now? This relative just saved your life. Since Natsunie-sen had crossed over, there was no point in watching the stepping stones, so we returned to Shoshinji. I thought Migiwa would want to immediately give chase, but trying to cross over at high tide was like going to a watery grave. Migiwa remained calm. If she wasn't level-headed, then I didn't think she'd last long in the kind of business of being an onikiri.
いつもこんなことやってるわけ? いや、さすがに剣を持った剣気なんて大物相手にすることはめったにないわよ。
I had a hard time fighting against the Moryu, but something of that level didn't seem to be a match for Migiwa.
今日はしんどかったわ。
She climbed up the long stairs to Shoshinji, as if spurring her weary body forward.
お、あそこに見えるのナミじゃない?
Oh, Nami, did you come looking for me again?
ナミ?
No, those eyes don't look like they're looking for anything in particular. That's right. She seemed to be searching for me last night, too. We entered Shoshinji, bringing Nami along with us, and then proceeded to wash off the salt wind and water that clung to our bodies. It really was a good thing to have baths available 24 hours a day.
Shoko-san, おはようございます.
And good morning to you, Aoi Shiro. I had a long night.
あやしろ、その顔色。
And you probably did too.
また見てしまいました。見たって幽霊?
I've been through a tough situation, but it seems they had their own problems to deal with here. In the warm morning light, the pallor of her face was like being bathed in moonlight, and it did look like someone attacked by a ghost. A long-haired ghost girl. The Moryu also had long hair, or perhaps a mane, but no matter what, they didn't look like young girls. Well, like how dogongs were mistaken for mermaids. With their short stature, they might look like girls from far away at night. I have never even heard of a dogong, if that's how you even pronounce that correctly. But Aoi Shiro had seen it from up close, and it said it was transparent. If the Moryu did this, then it wasn't like we couldn't solve this by smacking them with a wooden sword or something like that. Let me consult with Migiwa after she returns from watching over the Oni stepping stones. Was what I was thinking, but...
では今朝は走る代わりに座ってみてはいかがかな?
Can I just roll instead, so that way I'm closer to the ground and still moving? I turned out to consult with the monk instead.
座る?
お忘れかな? うちは禅寺ですぞ。
Fine, I'll do a crab walk.
確かに毘沙門様がご本尊なんですね。
You have a very stern face, good sir. True.
寺に歴史ありというやつじゃな。正心寺が建立寺からずっと禅寺であったら、毘沙門天の像ではなかったのではないかの。
昔は違う宗派だったんですね。
確か天台宗ではなかったかな。とにかく正心寺建立以来の歴史と伝統あるご本尊なのじゃよ。
お顔もいいですし、 これは相当評価の高い仏像なんでしょうね。
もしかして国宝級ってやつですか？国宝になったりしたら参拝客も増えてお寺も綺麗になるかもですよ。
ああ、いかんいかん。しかるべきところに通報するのはおやめくだされ。
通報？
Report.
もしやこの仏像。
いやいや、今のは失言じゃった。単なる言葉のあやですからお気になさらずに。この毘沙門天像は大昔から正心寺にある由緒正しい一品ですぞ。
If you say so.
それでは何故問題が？
下手なものに認定されるとそれを安置するのにふさわしい設備が必要になるらしいんじゃ。
Oh.
警備会社や地震火災その他の対策。
I didn't even think of that.
設備投資にお金かかりそうですね。
ある噂によると寄付がもらえるそうなんじゃが、ある噂によると没収されてしまうそうな。
やれやれ、全部貧乏が悪いんですね。
毘沙門天でもあるクンビーラは富と財宝を司る神でもあるはずなんじゃが、当寺院へのご利益はもっぱら武力に偏っておるらしい。
I don't know. I think fine skill could be its own form of wealth. One of the four guardian kings, Tamoten of the north, was also known as Sezaitan, builder of fortune.
ちなみに毘沙門天は鬼門を守護する戦神として知られておる。例えば京都の鬼門を守るのは鞍馬寺の毘沙門天じゃ。ところでお嬢さん方、意をもって意を制するという言葉を知っておるかな？
I've heard of fight fire with fire. It was probably like using poison to fight poison.
毘沙門天ももともとは水の眷属を率いる夜叉、いわゆる鬼の主会だったわけじゃ。
質問よろしいでしょうか？
何ですかな、副部長さん。
毘沙門様が水の眷属を率いているとどうしてわかるんですか？
毘沙門天が持っておられる武器、わかりますかな？
三つ股の矛ですね。
三叉戟というのは東西問わず水に関係する神仏が武器としてよく使っておるものなんじゃよ。
Momoko enthusiastically raised her hand.
ギリシア神話のポセイドンもなんかそんな感じの武器持ってました。漫画で？ゲームで？
ちなみに竜宮の竜王も御仏の教えに強化された存在ですから、毘沙門天とほぼ同じですな。
So Buddha has met with dragons, huh? Fascinating. After that long introduction, it was time to begin Zen meditation while sitting. Though we weren't doing anything in particular, it was rather hard to sit just for the sake of sitting. Well then, try not to go up against Catholics. I hear that they are experts at sitting. At least I think it's the Catholics that do that. In addition, during that long period, we weren't sitting in a familiar seiza position, but in a lotus position. Trying to think about something interesting might actually make you sleepy instead, and if that was revealed in your expression.
Cut!
Along with a loud shout, the Zen stick would come flying.
なんだか気分的に妙に長かった気がするわ。
Well, when you're focusing on every possible second that's passing by in your little sitting exercise, time will really seem like it's moving at a snail's pace. So the key to fast forwarding through time is to not think about time at all.
走っていた方が楽だったかもしれません。
やあやあ皆さんお疲れ様。
Where were you?
朝ごはんができましたよ。ももちゃん、なんでそんな目で見るのかな。そういえばザワッチは座ってなかった。大 って私朝ごはん作ってたし。
You can prepare breakfast and sit. I've done it before.
ところでオサ、なんで立たないの？
ちょっと足がね。
ふんふん、それはちょうどよかった。
Oh yeah? Why is that?
何よ。
Migiwa gave an audacious smile as she approached me. What are you up to? Making me uneasy. I wanted to retreat, but my foot was still numb, and I couldn't move as I wished.
大丈夫大丈夫、足に触ったりしないから安心して。
Then what are you going to touch?
オサ、夕べは助かった。ありがとう。
What's the catch? You're thanking me. What else is there to this?
別に大したことしてないじゃない。
Yes, I didn't do anything in particular. That's bowling, you know it, Shoko. Come on. My cheeks turned red.
命に関わる大したことだし、そこでお礼をしたいんだけど。
By giving me food? That situation was out of my control, and I just performed CPR since it was necessary. It's not something that requires thanks.
え？
When did Migiwa's face get so close to mine? Well, I was not expecting this. And then the distance between us was 0. Different from yesterday, Migiwa's lips were warm.
右は今のは一体どういうつもり？
What do you think she meant, Shoko? Don't be dense.
夕べのお礼？それともお釣り？お礼でお釣りって？
Migiwa, you might want to keep your mouth shut before you fill their heads with even more bad ideas.
オサの方から今のが消費税分程度にしかならないような、それは情熱的なやつを。情熱的。
いきなり何するのよ。
I know, and right in front of the monk, too. Have you no shame? Where is he, anyway? Or did he already leave? Along with an angry shout, I clenched my hand into a fist and took a swung at her. Yes, the only reason my face was red was because of anger. What in the world was she thinking? Doing something like this in the morning and in front of everyone?
何ってキス？
するな。
She dodged. Because my foot was numb, she escaped, and my hand didn't reach her.
あんなの挨拶みたいなもんだって。
そんなの日本の風習にはない。
うちの方にはアメリカの人も多いし。
そっちの人は置いといて。あなたはどうかって聞いてるの。
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot of people who greet each other by kissing on the lips. Unless you're a romantic couple.
ファーストキスは昨日の夜。
Oh.
嘘。
さーて、それはどうでしょう。
With the grin on her face, I couldn't tell if she was telling the truth or not. I don't know, I think that facial expression she had just a second ago tells me everything. It might unexpectedly be true, but if she were saying something like that, it also made me think it was a lie.
翔子先輩が右輪さんと。
Yasumi, please don't pass out.
しっかり、傷は深いぞ。
It really isn't what you think it is. Look what you fucking did, Migiwa.
おお、朝からまた精がつくものだね。
Well, that was certainly unexpected, but it brought me very entertaining results, so by all means, I welcome it. Please do it again sometime. I got a good chuckle out of this. Seriously. Anyway. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut things off here, and I guess we can figure out what we're going to do about Nuts and Nissan over on the next island in the next episode. And I guess, well, whatever the hell is going to happen between Migiwa and us. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Aoi Shiro. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.